What's up, party people? It's Dan, your basement guitar superstar. Tonight, I have the honor and privilege of bringing you another episode of Creator Spotlight. And this time, I'm with a musician from the Dallas-Fort Worth area who I discovered through the Vintage Guitar Players page. And he is what I would call a virtuoso guitarist in every sense, form, and connotation of the word. So please welcome me and joining Tim. Is it Goins or Goynes?
Goins, you got it.
Okay, perfect. So Tim, talk to me. It sounds like you're from Hope, Arkansas area. Whereabouts is that?
That's in the southwest corner. It's just it's only about 30 miles from Texarkana.
Okay, I was gonna say my best friend is from Jonesboro, Arkansas.
Oh yeah. When I was in high school band, we used to go up there and play that team sometimes.
Oh, nice. So talk to me about how you got started playing guitar. There's really nothing about it on your bio on Facebook at all.
No, not really. Yeah, I won't bore people with the gory details, but well, let's see. I grew up in the early '80s, right, and out in the country because and Hope is a small town to begin with, and we lived outside of that, on a big cattle ranch, and so we've only got antenna TV with 3 channels and an old VCR, or you listen to music. That was your 3 forms of entertainment for the evening, or go the hell outside, go fishing.
Right.
Most of the time, I'd rather be doing that.
Sure.
But yeah, so there was a lot of music in the house, and my parents loved all that, the stuff I still love. They loved Dan Fogelberg, Pink Floyd, all Leon Russell, the Eagles, all this kind of stuff, Van Morrison. And so I'm hearing all this music in the house all the time because we had a really nice home stereo system, and we would be listening to that. And so I already liked music, and I kind of was, there was a piano in the house, and I'd kind of plink around on it. Then I tried to pick up guitar. My parents, they both owned an acoustic guitar, like these little Yamaha 70s Yamaha thing, and tried to pick one up and play it. And I learned. I was 10 years old, and I learned the C chord, and I tried to learn the F chord, and where you got a bar, 2 fingers across, and I hated it, and I quit. I was like, screw this is awful. And then a couple of years later, it was a little, you grow a little bit, your fingers are bigger, your hands are bigger. And I think, and I actually started around 12 years old. And I found one of their books, Easy Folk Guitar, and had the little chord diagrams. And I said, "Hey, Dad, does this show you where to put your fingers?" And he goes, "Yeah." So it's like, oh. So I had my first song learned in a week. It was Teach the Children by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Nice. And I was able to play it, all the way through. I was just strumming chords, but I could play it, front to back from memory, and I could play it along with the record. You could put the record on, and I could play it and keep time. So I already had kind of a thing for it, and I started, learning more and more songs, and finally started taking lessons. They were like, "Hey, kid's this could be okay. Maybe you want to take guitar lessons." So started taking them at a store in Texarkana. There's no music stores in Hope, Arkansas. So I went to this place in Texarkana and took from a guy in Casey Lauderback. He's a great guitar player. I don't know where he's at. I think he might be in Dallas now. I'd have to check. But he was great. Learned from him for a while, and then I got started taking lessons when I got to high school. Started taking lessons with a jazz guitar player. His name Tonk Edwards, and I think he's still around. He's not doing too well these days. I mean, he's older. He's probably 85 or 90 years old at this point. But he was great. He played with Sarah Vaughan and all these great jazz artists from back in the day. But he happened to live right up the road, pretty much. It was maybe like a 30-minute drive or something the other way. But I started taking from him and learned a lot from him. And I was in the jazz band at high school, And after that, I went to, after high school, I did a year of college in Arkansas, and then I transferred to UNT to do their jazz program. And I got my bachelor's and master's in jazz guitar there, even though jazz is nowhere, I can still kind of play it, but it was never my thing. I mean, I love it, but it was never, it wasn't that, I didn't have that bug for it that people get, they get the jazz bug. They just, so it always seemed like I play a facsimile of jazz or whatever, but sure. I was pretty good at it, but it felt a little contrived to me. There are guys in town, or even when I was in school, just play circles around me. I'm like, what am I doing here? But I got the paper. I got to play in the 1 o'clock band for a couple of years, and toured all over the world with them. So it was pretty fun. And then there's no gigs in Hope, so I stayed here. So
nice.
Yeah, that was a long time ago already. Yeah.
So you toured with 1 o'clock band. Have you toured with any of the other artists you played with? It sounds like you have a pretty big list of them.
Not really. The only other one that I've really toured with a bunch was, and it wasn't really a tour, a bunch of fly out dates with Curtis Stephen, and we would do things all over the country. But it was just fly out for a weekend and go back home to our regularly scheduled programming. And but yeah, I've definitely played a lot all over the place. But as far as tours, it was just with the 1 o'clock band, which is, it's a student jazz big band. So it wasn't really like I was in a band and toured. And then I had kids, not too long after that. So it makes it a little harder to tour as a young man. So I just stick around, but I wouldn't trade my kids for all the touring I could ever do,
Oh, so. Yeah. Same here, man. Mine are 8 and 5. And
I've got 11 and 8. One of them just turned 11 yesterday.
Okay, cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so no shenanigans then on tour, no funny stories or anything?
Well, I will say, with that 1 o'clock band, we were kind of rock stars as far as the shenanigans go. There was we caused a Holiday Inn in Cumberland, Maryland, just outside of Washington, D.C. We caused that Holiday Inn to evacuate at 3 a.m. It was largely my fault. And they still talk about it at UNT. They don't know who it's because the stories get passed down through the kids like, oh man, there was this one guy. And, I've gone there to visit the school and nobody knows who I am. But if I tell them like, hey, did you ever hear that story? That was you? No way. And yeah, so.
Dude, you need to elaborate on that now. You can't just tell me, hey, this not tell me the story.
Let's just say it was because that I could tell that story for an hour because there's so many layers to it. But let's just say after the concert, before the reception, because they had set aside a reception for us because we were kind of the major artist of the thing. And the drummer, Ross Peterson, amazing drummer. He's up in New York doing great things now. And he left his cymbal bag mistakenly out in the hallway of the hotel. So 1, to fuck with him, and 2, to protect the cymbals, I took them and put them in my room. And he, we get back from the reception. He's freaking out. Where are my cymbals? Hi, and it comes around that it was me. And the rest of the night becomes, let's try and get Tim back. And that involved every plan that they came up with. And I found out about all this after the fact because I got blackout drunk. They were just feeding me shot after shot. Because every plan that they came up with was, let's get Tim so drunk that he passes out, and then we'll do something to him. And the last thing they tried, and I wasn't even passed out at the time. I was championing my way through a Maker's Mark bottle, which I still to this day can't drink almost 20 years later.
I'm the same way with the Jaeger for a reason.
Yeah, Jaeger. And so the last thing that they tried, and I wasn't even there to see it, because I was in another room. They knocked on my door, And my roommate answered, and they sprayed him with a fire extinguisher. But it's the new kind of fire extinguisher, not the one that you aim at the base of the fire. It's the one that just powder, it fills the whole room and suffocates the fire. Well, it also trips the fire alarms. So at 3 a.m., there go all the fire alarms.
Nice.
And they called in the not the hazmat team, the fire department in their full gear, and they're coming in there and like, and a few of us didn't evacuate because I was like, for instance, me, because I was too drunk to realize what was happening, and I finally decided I was going to go to bed, and I got in my room and I realized, man, all my stuff's covered. So I didn't see this happen. I didn't see any of it happen. And all my stuff's covered in this shit. I'm like, what is all this? I know. And I walk out. And right about that time, the director of jazz studies, Neil Slater, was very tall, older, intimidating, very intimidating guy. Great guy. I love him to death. But especially as a college kid, very intimidating. He walks out at the same time, just like it was like a sitcom. And he looks at me, and oh man, he read me the riot act up and down, even though I didn't really do it. He's so it was pretty great, pretty epic night. So there's actually a tune on that album that came out that year, the 1 o'clock, because most of the students would write a big band chart for the album. That's kind of how the thing worked. And so there was one on there called Fire Marshal, which is so that's how people know. I'm like, hey, you know that tune Fire Marshal, because they still play it in the lab bands at UNT. They still play that tune. They're like, yeah, I love that tune. I'm like, yeah, that's about me, that whole story. And they're like, holy shit, really? So
dude, I'm totally looking that song up when I get a chance after this.
Yeah, on YouTube. You look up the 1 o'clock lab band and Fire Marshal. It's on there. So
nice.
It's as far as the 1 o'clock band was a really interesting thing. Is it's not what you normally associate with jazz music. It's very contemporary, almost like kind of jazz fusion. There were a lot of rock elements. I did, like I was doing distortion, heavy chorus, and all that stuff like on there. And there's some regular old swinging tunes on there too. But the Fire Marshal, especially, it's pretty. As far as a big band goes, it's kind of like a rock and roll big band.
Oh, sure.
It's just the trumpets playing as high as they possibly can, shit like that. It's fun.
Nice.
We call it marching band jazz. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your influences for a little bit. The three big names I noticed that I know who they are Eric Johnson, David Gilmour, and John Scofield.
Yeah.
Would you say they're kind of the main ones that got you wanting to play, or?
I would say, I really learned, if I had to just pick one, it would be David Gilmour. Because the way I really learned to play guitar, because you go and take lessons and you do whatever, but the way you learn to play, really the way you learn to play is by learning music, learning tunes, and my thing was Pink Floyd. I loved it. And as a teenager, I was laboring, even though I didn't even realize that they had broken up at this point, I was laboring under the delusion that one day they were going to need a guitar player that knows all of the parts. So I better learn them all. And this is pre-internet, or there was maybe there might have been internet, but we didn't have it because we're way out in the freaking country, And finally, we got dial-up internet, but at the time that I was learning, I learned every song and every solo on every album since David Gilmour joined the band. So like with that 1971 Metal, that record, learned everything all the way up to their last album, The Division Bell, and the tours. And I learned like on the I had the Wall, the live recording of the Wall, the live recording of Momentary Lapse of Reason, or the Delicate Sound of Thunder. That was that tour. And then I have Pulse And I knew I could play the album version of the solo, or I could play the live version of the solo. I would sit in my room and just put on these records, and God bless my parents for putting up with it. But it was just me and my Strat and my Boss processor, and just trying to get as close to those sounds, and really getting obsessive about it. Really, like, not just like, okay, is he playing that note? Like, what I noticed when I play this note here on this string, it sounds different than if I play it on this string. Oh, okay. Is he playing on the neck pickup or the bridge pickup or one of the other combinations? Those kind of things, and really getting into that. And lo and behold, I didn't really realize at the time what I was doing was like learning to really play.
Right.
I was just trying to be in Pink Floyd. That's all I was doing. But lo and behold, it got to where I could hear the guitar. If you know what I'm saying, like where you've got your guitar fretboard, and you a lot of people they know the notes up and down the fretboard, and I do too. But to be able to hear them, I could hear it before I could read music, and I could hear a note. I could hear somebody play a note, and I knew exactly where it was on the guitar. And if you gave me long enough, I could go, oh, that's a G or whatever. But that was all because of David Gilmour, and I still use those same skills to this day, because with all the shit that I've learned, theory wise or technique wise, when you actually go to play, the only thing you have is your ears,
right?
And and so the more music you learn and the deeper you get into the music that you learn, the better your ears are. And so I try to just throw, like, I hope when I play that that maybe some of those things that I worked on, maybe those cool harmonic things, rhythmic things, hopefully they come out as part of the thing that I'm hearing. But the actual learning how to hear music, that came straight from learning all that Pink Floyd stuff from David Gilmour. So if I had to pick one, that'd be the guy. Wow. And then, but then I started hearing, as you do, you go through, you get guitar magazines and start hearing about other guitar players. I heard about Eric Johnson. Here I'm in Hope, Arkansas. Eric Johnson never comes to fucking Hope, Arkansas. I would, right. But I got this magazine, and got a Guitar Player magazine. I'm like, ooh, Eric Johnson. He plays a Strat, and everybody's talking about his tone. And I'm gonna check it out. So I checked it out, and I was just floored, because as most people are when they hear him for the first time, you're like, what the hell is this? This is amazing. And so I heard him, I was about 16, and that showed me, because for a while I was kind of in that same boat with other people, and I think it's a little bit of a jealousy thing. When you don't have chops, you kind of sometimes you can be guilty of looking at people that do and go like, oh, well, they're not playing musically, they're not playing with any kind of feel or anything. They're just shredding or just whatever. But that was Eric, and I was kind of like that. But Eric was the one that showed me like, wow, chops are kind of cool, and they can be musical. They can be beautiful. And so that's when I started trying to work on being able to, play. And I don't even consider myself a very fast or technical player or anything. I can play some things, but I see guys all over town, even in DFW, that just play circles around me chops wise. But what chops I do have, that came from listening to Eric Johnson. And then Scott Henderson's another one, big influence of mine. But the John Scofield thing, I heard those elements and a little bit more of that rock and blues thing in his playing. But he's a jazz player, but he can play like authentic, good rock and roll when he wants to, and authentic blues when he wants to. And you can tell it. You can tell he can do that even when he's just playing straight ahead jazz music. And so that, and he plays a little bit dirtier tone It's not just like that clean jazz guitar tone that we think about when we think about jazz. And he'll bend strings and he does his stuff. And so that was kind of my bridge into like, oh, okay, jazz is cool. Like, yeah. And so it gave me a little bit of a foothold, you know, a little foot in the door. Alan Holdsworth was another one I discovered at an early age too, but I could never touch what that guy does.
Oh, sure.
God.
Well, dude, you're for how good of a player you are, Tim, you're awful humble.
It's one of those things, though. I mean, the you know, you get good. I know I'm good, but like the better you get, the more you realize you ain't even close. You know, it's
right.
like, yeah, you think when you're at a certain level that, oh yeah, well, if I can just learn how to do this, I'll feel like I've arrived. And then you get there and you learn how to do that, and you're like, shit, I got to do this now. You know,
right?
And it's just a never ending thing. But you know, but if there wasn't into it, you know, I would quit when I got there. You know? But that's the fun. Yeah.
So what was kind of a lot of beginner guitarists watch my channel because I'm sure you've seen some of the videos I post on vintage.
Yeah.
My whole thing is buy average guitarists for average guitarists. So you've taught before. What's kind of been like for you or for some of your students, the Rosetta Stone, where if they get stuck in a rut, like, man, I'm just stagnating, I don't know what else to do. What are some pieces of advice that you could give that would help them break out of that and kind of take their playing to the next level? Is there scales? Is it triads? Is it, you know, learning how to do pinch harmonics? Is it, you know, what is it, do you think?
I mean, you know, scales are always good, but that kind of goes without saying. Triads are always good. That goes without saying, but a lot of people don't work on them as much. A big part of the way that I play guitar is really, I'm really trying to outline whatever chord I'm playing at the time that it's playing. Hopefully I'm to the point where, you know, when I go to play, I'm not thinking about, oh, I must play this E triad over this. Like, hopefully that's just something I'm hearing. You know,
right.
You want to get those sounds in your ear so that you're not having to think about it. Because if you're thinking about what you're playing, you're not thinking about music. But triads are a good thing, and I try to outline the chords that I'm playing, and the quickest way to learn where those freaking chords are is by learning your triads all up and down the neck. And you know, not just knowing one place to play this G chord. It's like, man, it's all over the place. You can play it up here and up here and up here and up here. And then the other thing you realize is like, wait a minute, that same scale, if I'm playing it over G and I'm playing G major scale and I'm playing over a G chord, well, that G major scale exists all over the fretboard too. And it exists around that triad, you know, all those different triad shapes, because that's all it is, just parts of the scale played at the same time. It's not like it's separate things. So learning those triads and then learning to be able to, you know, like, oh, well, because then when you know those really well, then you have notes to land on. You have notes to like go for. Like, okay, I'm gonna finish this phrase. I'm gonna finish it on the third, and then try like really nail that chord where it sounds like you know what you're doing, because you do at that point. Because most guys that you hear, man, they learn the pentatonic scale, maybe the major scale, maybe the minor scale, and they just kind of float around in that box, and just kind of, and yeah, it's technically correct, as long as they're in the right key, right? But it's technically correct, but it doesn't sound like they're really playing the tune. It sounds like they're just noodling over the tune going on underneath them, rather than really speaking the chords. And the way that you do that is really learning where those chords are. And it's boring work. I tell everybody when I used to teach, like, it's like, it's boring work. I know, I get it. It sucks. It's awful to practice. There are ways to make it a little bit more enjoyable, but you know, just sitting there running triads all day, it's it's boring. It's like, I get it, but man, it unlocks so many things. Another big one that helped me a lot when you get into ruts is just play on one string, and play over two. Like, say you're going to play over a blues or whatever, practice playing over a blues, and just say, okay, well, I can only use the G string. Well, hopefully that, you got to know that scale on that string, which is harder than you think it is.
You got to kind of have the fretboard memorized in order to be able.
And it kind of helps your ear too. There's a direct relation of like how far you move your finger and how much the note changes, right? But it's the main thing though is that when you got one string, you can't play your licks anymore. Okay, that's kind of cool, because then you're forced to come up with something. You gotta create, and that's cool, because then when you go back to all 6 strings, it feels like cheating. Like, wow, you've all of a sudden busted your brain out of these licks that you do. Or you might say, okay, well, I can play on 2 strings, but maybe make them non-adjacent strings. Maybe make it to where you play on the D string and the high E string. Make it weird. It doesn't have to sound good. It just, hopefully it does, but that's not the point. The point is just like you're limiting yourself so that hopefully when you open it back up, you have so much more that you can actually do.
Right.
Because it's forcing you to improvise, to actually improvise, rather than just spew out those same licks that you always play. So
right.
That's a couple of good ones for me.
Nice. Well, thanks for that, man. I know people watching are going to appreciate that. Talk to me. Let's change keys here a little bit. Talk to me about what was your first electric guitar you owned, and do you still have it?
My first electric guitar was a PV Patriot.
Nice.
It was a guitar, and I don't. I had it for a long time, and it was. But I even had it in college, and I tried to make a fretless guitar out of it, because there were a couple of guys doing that. So I actually ripped the frets out. It didn't really work very well, and so and then I was like, you know what? I want to learn how to refret a guitar. Well, and so I put new frets back in, but it didn't really work out very good, because I'm not very good at fret leveling or anything. I'm going to leave that to the professionals. But then I just sold it after that. I'm sure somebody's taking it and loving it, because it's such a cool little guitar. Really light too. They're really thin.
Yeah, I remember those. I think the lead singer of the band I played in college had one of those. That was his first guitar.
Cool. Yeah, those are neat.
So how'd you get hooked up with vintage then? Because I know we're both huge fans of that brand.
Oh yeah. Well, it's kind of a sad story in a way. So I had after that PV Patriot, I had this Gibson V Paul from like the early 80s, and that was a cool guitar. But my parents heard me play Pink Floyd for the first time, because I would just be up in my room, right? And I'd just be learning this stuff. And I came down, I was like, I want to show you, I can play Another Brick in the Wall. And I played the solo along with the record. And they knew I wanted a Strat because of David Gilmour. But then they heard me play. They're like, oh, we're going to get you that Strat. And I wanted a Sunburst. This was 97. And I wanted a Sunburst American Standard Stratocaster with a rosewood fretboard. That's what I wanted. And we made a whole day of it. This is in February 97. I remember this, man.
How old were you?
I was 13. I was 13.
Okay, so you're about my age then. I'm 37.
Yeah, I'm also 37. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And so I was 13, and we made a whole day of it. We took the Amtrak train to Dallas, right on the train instead of driving. We could have driven, but we took a train. And we got out and we went to the Guitar Center off of 75, and it's still there, that same store. And I go in there and I can still see it. And I remember when I walked in, and I'd never seen a place like Guitar Center. Guitar Center's kind of gone downhill, but to a 13-year-old kid, first time that you've ever seen a store like that, holy shit, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're like, oh, guitars everywhere. Because the music stores in Texarkana didn't have anything like this. And they had some good guitars, but not like that. And there was just a row, just stretched forever. And I saw it. And there it is. It's that Sunburst American Standard Rosewood fretboard. Saw it. I didn't even play any other guitars. I just grabbed it. I was like, this is the one. And they're like, don't you want to play it? I played it for 2 seconds. I was like, no, this is it. That's the one I want. And I didn't know anything. And it turned out that was a great guitar. And that was my guitar. There's still some pictures of me on my Facebook page with that guitar. First I changed the bridge on it. I changed it to a Wilkinson bridge way back in the day. One of the VS 100 bridges like this one here. And so that was the first thing I changed. Then I changed the neck on it a couple of times. The original neck is still around. A friend of mine has it. And I wanted to swap it for a maple neck. And because I got into the kind of the maple fretboard sound for a while. On a little bit faster attack, and so I tried it on that guitar, and it worked out great. But that was way later. I mean, before then, every ding, every scratch, everything on that guitar was mine. It looked like a relic, even though it had that thick ass polyester finish. It was like the more beat up it got, the better it sounded. Because really, with that poly finish, man, like the wood couldn't breathe. The ones that started getting dinged up, and the wood got exposed in a bunch of spots. It's like, oh, it actually kind of dried out. It sounded even better. And everybody knew me for that guitar. That went all over Europe when I did that Europe tour. It went all over the country with me. It was on just about every recording I did up to a certain point. Then I had kind of a tumultuous relationship with a lady. This is long after my divorce and everything. And it, after it ended, my guitar was still over there. I was going to go get it, but she broke it into a million pieces.
Oh no, I'm sorry to hear that, man.
Yeah, that was my baby. And I had a Les Paul at the time. I had a little Epiphone Les Paul, so I wasn't guitarless. And I used to have a lot of guitars. After my divorce, again, this is almost 10 years ago now, but I had to sell most of my shit because I couldn't figure out how to do a single income household. I was really bad with money. And so, but I had that little Les Paul, a little Epiphone Les Paul, which was kind of a piece of junk, but at least it was something. It was pretty. Just the electronics were crap. I was like, man, I got to get a Strat. I got to get a Strat again. And John Inman, who's another vintage endorser, who lives in Dallas, and he would post about them, and I'm like, man, those look like pretty cool guitars. And they good looking Strats. And I asked him, I talked to him, how much do they charge? And he's like, man, they're really not bad. So I went to a store and carried them, and they had several, and I played them, and I was like, man, this is pretty good. And then they had a Fender in there too that was a lot like my old baby. It was a 60s reissue, but it kind of had the same look, vibe, and everything, and sounded really good. And for a while, it was winning. And then I was about to walk out, and I saw this. It was right on the top because the store I went to, you actually go downstairs into their guitar room, but they've got guitars hanging all over the staircase. And this one, the blue one, it used to have a rosewood fretboard, but it was hanging up on the right above the door. I was like, oh man, I didn't see that one. And I played it, and oh my god, it was the winner. was like, yeah, this one's coming home. And I started playing it, and people were commenting on it. It's like, man, that's a really good sounding guitar. Yeah, it really is. And I wouldn't say that it might now, but it didn't sound I don't think it sounds as good as that old Strat of mine, but it sounds really close a lot earlier than that old Strat took a long time to start sounding that good. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It had to get some years on it and let the wood dry out and everything. And then that thing was just a bell. But this one is really close already. So I'm sure as it gets older and stuff too, it's
How long ago did you get it?
A couple years. It was like 2019, 2018 or 2019, yeah. And then I talked to I just approached the guys at Vintage. I talked to Rick Taylor. I was like, hey man, I run this wedding band and I do this other stuff and so I'm playing your guitars a lot, and a lot of people see them and people are coming up and commenting about it. And would you be interested in having me on as a vintage artist? And he goes, of course, man, send me some of your stuff. And so that's kind of how that started working. And so then they took this one. I gave it to them first, and they messed with it a little bit. First, Willie Smith put the Bucka switch in, which is a little push switch. There's a dummy coil in here. It's like what's on the Thomas Blue model.
Oh, sure.
And so there's a dummy coil in here that is reverse wound and reverse polarity, just like a middle pickup.
Sure.
So when I'm on the bridge or the neck pickup, I can turn that other coil on, and it doesn't change the sound of these pickups, but it takes away about 50% of that buzz.
Oh, okay.
So that's pretty cool. And then a little later, Kevin Easton put this relic maple neck on it, and I love that. So it's got a really flat back. He kind of sanded it down, so it's almost like a D-shaped neck. And I have them take the finish off the back of all of my necks. I don't like having the finish back there. I feel like it's just sticky. So having that raw wood feels really nice.
Dude, you and I will get along great then, because I freaking hate when guitars have that sticky bullshit on the back of them.
Yeah, it's annoying. And the guitars that I have that aren't vintage guitars, I get crazy with sandpaper. I take the finish off the back of the necks regardless.
Sure.
So
yeah. So talk to me about some of your other ones. It looks like you have two of the Blue models there, right? Am I seeing that correctly?
Well, this one, you're talking about this white one here?
And the blue one hanging up behind you, isn't that a Blue too?
Oh, this one? Oh, this is a crazy one. This isn't even a vintage. This is actually a Squire. This is a Squire Stage Master. This, if I have a shredder guitar, this is it. It's got the Floyd Rose.
Because the one good video I could find of you playing, Tim, you were playing that guitar with Tin Man Band.
Oh yeah, I do remember that. Yeah,
it was like that finale thing or whatever, where you guys were doing
playing Let's Go Crazy. I think was the name of the tune. Yeah, that Prince tune. Yeah, this guitar it needs some help. It's actually for sale. I hardly ever play it. It's a neat guitar, but it needs a new Floyd Rose. It's got a burr on it, so it never returns quite back to zero. And it needs new pickups because it's just shitty Squire pickups. But this one right here, and I know you're seeing that reverse headstock and everything. This is actually one of those JMH models or whatever. It's supposed to be the Jimi Hendrix type thing, the Fillmore, I think they call it.
Oh, okay.
And
for some reason I was thinking that the JMHs were Thomas Blug designed or something.
Yeah, no, his is just his, and he's got the regular white one, and he's got like that one with the crazy red floral print,
Yeah.
which does have a reverse headstock. But this one was just that the JMH, and I like to fuck with guitars. So it did have 22 frets. I've always liked the look of a 21 fret neck, and the 22nd fret was trying to come out, and I could have tapped it down easy enough, whatever. But I was like, you know what? I'll just chop it off and reshape the end of the fretboard. And so it's a 21 fret neck now. And then I put the mint green guard that was originally on this one on here.
Nice.
So it has more of that vintage look. And then I just got a little careful with the chisel, and just kind of, messed up the body a little bit. So all these little small marks are. I don't know if you can see it on the camera.
Yeah,
there,
I could see them a little bit. Yep.
Yeah, so I just kind of dinged it up just a little bit. And this is one of the ones that I have tuned in E flat. I've got a couple that I tuned down a half step. And that one, this one back up here is, and I named them all. They're named after flowering bushes and trees and stuff. So the blue one's holly. This one's ivy. The white one's lily, and we'll get to that one in a second, and that one too. That one's azalea, and that one's magnolia. This one's laurel. This Esquire thing, and this one doesn't have a name, so I guess it is for sale.
Good. So I'm not the only one that names all my guitars then.
So what now?
I said, good. I'm not the only person that names all my guitars then.
It just it kind of came out of nowhere because one of my friends said she felt like this should be named Holly. And it was just thought it should be named Holly, and I was like, okay. So then when I got this one, I was like, well, it's kind of like a different guitar from this one, so I call it Ivy. And then that's how the trend started. This one's pretty cool though. This is the first one they made for me. And it started as just a regular V6 with the humbucker, but it's got it's just an idea that I had because I've never seen it done before. I've seen mini humbuckers on guitars before. This is like that Gibson Deluxe type mini humbucker, and I've seen that done on guitars before, but I've never seen it angled. And I've seen angled regular humbuckers before, but I like the mini humbucker because it's right in between kind of the single coil and the humbucker sound. So it's a little bit louder, but it's not crazy distortion or anything like that. I like to get that from my pedals if I need it.
Sure.
But yeah, I came to them with that idea. I was like, man, can you slant it? Make the treble a little bit brighter, and they're like, yeah, let's try that. And so it came out really well. I love it. It's got a big chunky neck on it, and again, no finish on the back of the neck. And then we put that Wilkinson 2-point bridge on there, the VS 50, I think is what this one is. And yeah, so that's a great guitar. It's also an E flat. The Les Paul up there, that V100, it's just that's a standard. This is a stock model. This is just it's just a Les Paul.
Yeah, you just got that one, didn't you?
Yeah, that's the newest one, and it sounds great. It sounds like a Les Paul.
Yeah. Dude,
And I'm not really a Les Paul guy.
I have Rachel with me today. This is my first vintage I ever owned. Is this one?
Oh, that's pretty.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah, I like that dark sunburst.
Yeah.
Then the last vintage I have, this one is an Esquire, and now that one I bought off the rack. This is the most recent one that they made for me, and I was like, man, you think you could take a V52 and make it into an Esquire? And Kevin was like, hell yeah, let's try it. And so they just took a stock V52 icon and again took the finish off the back of the neck. He actually made this compound radius, so it's 10 here and 14 here.
Oh, nice.
So it's a big neck, but it feels like old vintage guitar, but it feels like a shredder on top. It's great. Sure. Really easy to play. And the wiring with the switch here, if you're in the middle, Esquires in general, if you're on the middle position, you go, pick up, volume, tone, out, and on the what would be the bridge position, it just goes volume, out, and so it skips the tone control, which gives you like about 2 decibels of boost.
Oh, really?
Just less circuitry to go through. And normally on an Esquire, in the forward position, it runs it through a capacitor that it's like it's like a bassy circuit. It like rolls almost all the highs off. And because a lot of bands back in the 50s, they didn't have bass guitars, so it'd be a guy on a regular guitar playing low notes, and and that would help him get that kind of more bass type tone. But on this, we did the Eldred wiring, which is in that front position. It goes through a different kind of capacitor that makes it sound like you got a wah pedal pressed halfway down. Oh, wow. And that's pretty cool, because that's that money for nothing sound, and you can get it straight off the guitar. Because that's how he got that, was it was a Les Paul, but he had the wah pedal just pressed halfway down, and that's what that sound is. But here you can just flip the switch and just do it, and so it's pretty cool. Nice. Yeah, and then the other one. This is actually it's another Squire, but I love these things. It's a classic vibe, and they're classic vibe Squires are just ridiculous guitars.
Dude, they're so good now. Like, their quality control has gotten so much better in the last 10 years.
Yeah,
it's insane.
And the classic vibes in general, or in particular, so this is obviously a 50s. It's kind of an Eric Johnson looking thing, right? And I saw it, I wanted it, I looked. It's even like you get to looking at it, and the neck is flame maple, man. It's like it's got some flame in there, and it's so cool. You pay $300 for it, and it sounds like every bit as good as it looks. It's probably the most photogenic guitar that I have. There's something about that 2-tone sunburst that just photographs so well. Right. And it plays really easy, and I went ahead and took the sandpaper to the back of the neck and got all finished off of it too. So,
right.
That's my guitars. Yeah.
What about your pedal board? I know you did a rig rundown video for your YouTube channel last year. Is it changed much?
And it's changed since then, but but it's still pretty basic. I'm going into a couple of Joyo pedals, those cheap Chinese or Korean pedals. The Joyo compressor, and then into what their version of a tube screamer. But I'm using the tube screamer as just a clean boost. The compressor is always on because it's a very light compressor and doesn't really suck the attack away. It just kind of fills it up a little bit more.
Right.
And then the tube screamer thing I use is just purely a clean boost. And so it'll kind of drive an amp a little bit. And then out of that, I go into one of those miniature fuzz spaces.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, because it fits on a pedal board. And then I've got the Empire dual drive. I have another one back here. This is kind of the main box of tone. It's got 2 sides here and different modes on each side, and you can switch it from true bypass to buffer. It's a spaceship, man. And one side's a little bit harder edge. This side's a little bit smoother, kind of more of like this is kind of like the Eric Johnson side. This is kind of something else, like a little harder edge than that. And then you can turn them on both at the same time. You can switch which one feeds into the other. It's a very deep pedal.
That's that one that Big Joe Stomp Boxes does, right? That contributes. Yeah.
And then I go into the Quilter amp. This is the Tone Block 202, which is basically it's solid state. It's all analog, but it's solid state. But it's basically just a blackface Fender in a little box. That's all it is, really. So out of that, the effects loop, I've got a Big Joe chorus just a standard chorus, and then a flashback delay, the TC Electronics, and then another TC Electronics reverb, the Sky Surfer reverb. It's a giant pedal, but I like it because it's got big knobs that are easy to turn with your foot, and the reverb on the amp sounds better, but I can turn this on and off. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it makes it a little bit easier. But that's it. No wah, no nothing. Just goes in the amp and then into just a little 112 cabinet, and then I've got that little integral mic that you mount on top of the speaker.
Oh, sure.
So that the cabinet has an XLR out now,
Okay.
and that's cool. It's always mic'd. I just got that a couple of weeks ago. It's been working out great. It sounds great. Sounds way better than going direct out of the back of the amp or something. Even the amps that have a direct out, because that's a thing now. You get
right.
Have an XLR out. But it's kind of like that, but it's way better. So I like it.
So you can plug directly into the PA then, basically, from what you're doing. You don't have to mic amp or anything.
And I use a little kickback stand that I made. So I point the amp back at me. So it's not killing the front row. It's not killing the sound guy. So they love it. And then I don't have to run it very loud. And I can I can hear it just as loud as can be without having to crank it. And then that feeds into the PA. And then, the sound guys love it.
Yeah.
And they can actually crank me up louder in the house. So
nice.
That's good. Yeah.
So talk to me about what the pandemic looked like for you. I know it was rough for a lot of musicians. You're not teaching jazz anymore, right? At the schools. So what did you do to stay busy during the pandemic? Are you still giving lessons? Do you have an outside gig outside of playing music, or what is that?
Yeah, I mean, I have a day job at this point still, a 9-to-5er, and it's in the construction business. I'm a service manager at a window and door company, and
cool.
So I have an office job.
I used to be an electrician before I got into selling insurance. So
yeah. So and that's been good, and the hours fortunately don't conflict with the gigs that I have to play. But yeah, the pandemic sucked, man. It was really awful. Because I mean the day gig, it would support I made enough money to keep the lights on, but all the extra extra money to like actually save, put back towards anything, that was coming from gigs, playing all the time. And that just kind of went completely away for a long time. And we didn't know. I sure didn't know. And we would try to do little Facebook Live concerts and things like that. And it was kind of bullshit, I mean, it was something. It was better than nothing. But you get like 5 people tuning in, because even as starved as people were for entertainment, people are getting it from, you just turn on Netflix or whatever.
Right.
But
well, dude, I would rather watch a live band or like a live stream on YouTube than like I'm done with Netflix. Like honestly, the only show on there that's halfway worth a shit, in my opinion, is The Witcher. But then again, I'm a giant nerd, so
yeah. But we so I mean, fortunately, the day job kept me busy. And then here in Texas, it came back. The gigs started coming back a lot sooner than fortunately, and I hate it for everywhere else, but the gigs did start coming back a lot sooner.
Yeah.
Than in a lot of other parts of the country, because as soon as we opened up to like 25% capacity, people were like, "Dude, get the bands back." They're like, I don't care if they're playing for 10 people. A lot of it ended up being smaller bands. They couldn't afford the big show bands and stuff with a bunch of singers up front or whatever. But it was something,
right?
And especially as a rhythm section player, of course, I'm a band leader for mine, so I had to be there. But yeah, so bassists and drummers, and keyboard players started working a lot again. It was a little bit different, but it was something. And
I mean, are you still doing any session work or anything?
When I get called for it, but I just, I hadn't. Everybody's doing everything at home now. There's. I don't remember the last session I did. I would do it, but I don't have. I should, but I don't have like all the really nice recording gear here at home. So, and I know a lot of guys are doing that, just right out of their house. But yeah, so I would still do them if I got called for it. But
Sure.
Yeah, but we'll see. Maybe as things start lifting even more, and people start getting more productive with their music, maybe it'll come back around again. And I'll start doing that, because I would love to do that.
Well, and you have a new record coming out here pretty soon too, don't you?
Already, yeah.
Oh, it is. Okay, I didn't see anything on your Facebook page about it. You just said, "Hey, dropping soon," and then.
Oh yeah, on my regular page, I put it out. But yeah, it's out there. It's called Incandescent.
Okay.
And it's on everything. It's on Bandcamp, iTunes, Deezer, Spotify, Google Play, and it's even on YouTube.
Awesome. And for those of you watching this, I will post a link in the description to everywhere you can find Tim's music. So if you like what you hear, please download the songs, buy them, support him in any way you can, obviously. Sure. That leads me into my next thing. Tim, how come there's not very much footage of you playing live on YouTube at all? Really, the only stuff I found is from Tin Man Band, and then like a couple blurry ass videos that some gal took from her phone like 6 years ago.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I just like the YouTube thing kind of escaped me for a while. I should probably work on that. But there's more stuff on Facebook Live. There's plenty of that. If you go to my regular page, not even my music page. But yeah, I don't know. I never really thought to bring camera crew out along with me on these gigs. But I should start getting somebody to come and film the stuff. Toss them a few bucks to do it.
Well, I mean, even if you could get like an iPhone and just set the settings to record in 1080p 60 frames per second. I mean,
yeah.
The iPhones, the built-in mics are good enough. You'd probably have a decent sounding video that would sound like total shit if you recorded an entire show or something,
Right. Yeah. And yeah, I could do that. And it's just like when I'm getting ready to go to a gig, it's kind of like the last thing I'm thinking about. It's like, I just want to go play, and forget about all that. But
so, what's your favorite venue you've played at? Then
definitely more of that. Yeah.
What's your favorite venue you've played at?
Oh man, that's a good question.
Outside of Dallas and in Dallas.
Let's see. In Dallas, I would say in Dallas, my favorite venue was probably like the House of Blues main stage. That's a pretty that was pretty fun, and you get kind of treated like a king there when you're on the main stage.
Okay.
And there's a lot of people there and everything, and the sound, the PA situation is just amazing. It's it's just awesome. outside of Dallas, I would say, man, there's a couple of contenders, man. Played at like the Montreux Jazz Festival, right there on Lake Geneva,
Nice.
that kind of thing. That's hard to beat. Hard to beat the odds of that is someplace like that. But honestly, for the history of it, Blues Alley in Washington, D.C.
Really?
Yeah. And just because like so much has been recorded there, so much great old blues and folk and jazz and stuff. And it's just such a cool vibe. It was a good sounding room, and it's a listening room. People are there, and the front row, like the tables are literally, here's the stage, and the first table's like right here. They're right up on you, and so they're right there in your face, and they're eating it up. They're watching everything that you're doing. They're just loving it. It's great. I love that. There's a place like that in Dallas. It's called Memphis Nightclub, and we play there a lot. But it's just like a regular club gig. There's nothing special about the venue itself, other than it has that same kind of vibe. It's just real dark in there, real small, smoky. It's and everybody's there to just hang out and have a good time. Right up on the stage, it's a small room, but it gets packed out, and they're just having a great time. And you can just we always have a good show. I mean, we try to have a good show wherever we go, but just the overall vibe in there is so easy to do. It makes it easy to play. So we like playing there too. But yeah, so that'd be about a couple there.
Nice. How did you get hooked up with Tin Man Band? Because you're not an original member, right? You came on after they started.
So in Dallas, the wedding band scene is pretty big. All that whole party band, top 40 thing.
Sure.
It's like it does their original music during the first part of the week, and then the party band stuff on the weekends, and that's kind of how we do. And it actually is kind of a close-knit community, even though there's dozens of bands that do that. They were all doing the same shit, but the guy that used to be the band leader for Tin Man, which is one of these long running, it's been around for like 20, 25 years. He needed a guitar player, actually, incidentally, at that Memphis club I'm talking about. And somebody convinced him, like, dude, you gotta hire Tim. You gotta hire Tim. And so I played that gig, and he loved it. And just from that one gig, he was like, man, it'd be great to just have Tim come on as musical director. Him take some load off of me and everything. And so we were kind of heading in that direction. And then he had a massive heart attack and died.
Oh,
a week.
Sorry to hear that.
Later. And so that conversation just turned into, well, can you just be the band leader? He was already wanting to do that. So that's kind of how that happened. That was a few years ago now. And but it's been great. Because a few of the players changed, they wanted to go a different direction, but guys I have now are just, we're all great friends. We don't take ourselves too seriously, which a lot of these bands do, but we don't. And but one of the things I love about it is that we don't use any pre-recorded tracks like a lot of bands do. Yeah, a lot of these party bands use tracks, and I understand it from a standpoint of like, oh yeah, we don't have a keyboard player, so we can use the tracks to fill out those keyboard parts. I can get that, but some of them are like it's so bad where like you'll have a guitar player or a keyboard player, but the guitar parts, the keyboard parts will be on the track, coming through louder than the actual guitar. And I'm like, where the hell did you hire a guitar player?
Right.
You know, so we don't use any of that shit. So you know, so it's different every night. We're playing a lot of the same stuff, well, that top 40 stuff, but it's different every night, which is fun. And we've got really good players that you know, and we're all kind of veterans of the scene. Like we don't have any, don't really have any young players in the band, and we're all still just out there having fun. But we've done it for so long, we know how to respond to different musical situations, and you know, fly off the handle a little bit, and it's kind of fun.
How often do you gig for them, or did you gig with them before the pandemic hit?
Oh yeah,
like a 2 or 3 times a weekend type thing, or?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, it was a lot, and we were out of town a lot, mostly in Texas, but we were out of town a whole lot, and yeah, be 2 to 3 times a week, and it was, you know, that was good. And then the pandemic hit, and kind of all went away, but we started to, you know, trickle it back, and now we're trucking along pretty good again. We've got several versions of the band as well. They're, you know, to fit different people's budgets. Like if they can't afford the full band, well, you can have like guitar, bass, drums, and you know, 2 singers or something. You don't have to have the saxophone and all these other singers and whatever. So we've got different versions of it, but between all that, yeah, we're doing a lot. So it's fun. I'm glad it's back. You never take that shit for granted again, eh? So
yeah. So shifting gears a little bit from that, but still talking about guitar, what like newer guitarists have you heard recently that you're excited about?
Man, you know what? I wouldn't call him new because he's not. But
the ones you've discovered that are new to you, I should say.
Yeah, the guy named Ian Thornley, which is from a band called Big Wreck out of Canada, and they were almost big in the 90s, in like the late 90s. Their first album came out in 97, and they did a couple albums, but they had a couple of kind of minor hits, especially in Canada, because they're obviously from Canada. On that first album, excuse me, they and I heard that album, and I said, man, it's really great. But I found out about it last year, during the pandemic. But I heard that album, I was like, good God, this is really great. They're kind of like the most overqualified version of Soundgarden ever.
Really?
The guy sings great, and the tunes are kind of in that vein. But they're now, I won't say he can sing better than Chris Cornell, but he sings a lot like Chris Cornell. And but as far as like guitar playing, bass playing, and drumming, and everything, like they're, especially now, they are just light years beyond. I mean, they're just so freaking good. It's ridiculous. And you hear the records, and the records sound great. And then you hear them live, and it sounds even better. It's usually the other way around.
Right.
You know, live gets a little bit loose. Now they're even better live, and the solos are crazy, and he goes even farther vocally, and it's great. Yeah, and they've got like the tunes that they write now are even better than they used to be. Even though the first album, and it's the one to check out, it's called In Loving Memory Of. And yeah, it's just a fantastic album, start to finish. But anything by them is worth picking up, and anything on YouTube you see of them, it's gonna be good. They just never have a bad show. It's ridiculous. It's so good.
Nice.
And he is just a phenomenal guitar player. I mean, it's like, yes, thank you. Like a really, I mean, he's a total virtuoso, and he gets a great sound. Just a really good rock and roll guitar sound. He's a Strat guy most of the time. And just plays the hell out of it. Always gets a really pure tone, and he can go several different directions. He can go, if he wants to sound exactly like Stevie, he can sound just like Stevie. And another of his big guys is Mark Knopfler, and if he decides to go into Knopfler mode, it's like you close your eyes, you think you're hearing Mark Knopfler play. And it's
nice.
He's great. He's great. So yeah, that'd be the guy. Ian Thornley. He's fantastic.
I'll definitely check him out then.
Yeah.
Let me trying to think of what else I hit. What's kind of your 5 to 10 year plan musically, you think?
Well, the album's out, and I'm already starting to write the second one. But I want to start getting, as much as I love the wedding band and everything that I play in, that's great and all, and it is good money, but I want to get to the point where I'm just doing my music. It's just I'm starting to get to that age where I'm like, yeah, I'm just tired of fucking around with this other stuff. It's like I'm already writing tunes. I want to just do that. And so that album's out, and I know Vintage is gonna. I'm not sure what they've got in the works for it, but I know they're gonna start helping me promote it. Since their name's on the album too, Tim Goynes plays Vintage guitars. So get the second, starting to work on the second one already, and we play a lot of the tunes live on some of the smaller gigs that we do, and they've been going over well.
Nice.
Or to where the best compliment that I got was from a bar manager. He goes, "Man, the thing that I love about your originals is that they don't sound like originals." And you know what I mean by that, Yeah. Usually, like the band is like, "Oh, we're gonna play an original tune." Everyone's like, "Oh, here we go," and it's kind of just shitty. I mean, go for it. I mean, yes, do your original music, but a lot of times it's kind of like, you might have, take a little bit more time writing that, and getting it a little bit better.
Like you guys are definitely better as a covers band than originals. Yeah, there's some around here like that too.
There's a lot of that, yeah. And so he goes, yeah, they sound like. He goes, man, it sounds like just some badass tune that I just totally missed somewhere along the way. I was like, man, thank you. I really appreciated that. Meant a lot. So those tunes have been going over really well. So I want to start playing some more gigs, just doing that and seeing if that takes off. And I've got a couple of places already kind of interested in maybe having that. So that'd be kind of cool. And so, yeah, I mean, that's just kind of where I want to get to. I don't aspire to be any kind of famous or anything. I don't want to be famous. I don't want to.
Well, you at least come to Iowa so I can see you play live.
Hell yeah, let's do it. Like, send me some links to some places we can play and do it. Yeah, like I said, I've got and now I've got an album I can send them. Like, hey, you want to share? Yeah. So what was I going to say? I just want to start getting to where that's just what I do. I don't want to be. I want to still be able to go grocery shopping and not get stopped. So I'm not even aspiring to any kind of delusion of grandeur like that. I just want to be able to make a living playing my music and just that be what I do instead of overstretching myself in a million different directions between the day job and the wedding thing and my own music and being a dad and all this other stuff.
What do your kids think about dad being a musician? Are they pretty?
Yeah, they're always. I mean, you see, this is actually the best guitar that I've got.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that one. My 8-year-old made that for me when she was like 5. So it sounds amazing. They love it. They're into it. My little girl loves. She loves singing, but I never pushed it on. Like I don't want to do that. They're around it, because they're around me, and they took their own interest in it, and that's the way I wanted it to be. If they were going to do it at all. So my big girl, she plays violin, and she already, she can play it pretty well. I mean, for her age,
Right.
And she's in like her 6th grade orchestra, and she can already start to pick out songs by ear from memory. Like she's kind of like gets a melody stuck in her head and figures it out on the violin, which I can't even do that. Shit, I can't make a sound out of the violin. And so they're kind of into it, but I didn't push it up because I don't want to be that parent, because I've had to teach the kids of those kinds of parents, and
they usually hate it.
Yeah, they hate it. You're really being paid to be a babysitter at that point.
Yeah. I had a bunch of friends when I was a kid, and I thank God my parents didn't do this, but like they forced their kids to take piano lessons.
Yeah.
I told my parents, if you ever do that, I will run away and like join the circus or something.
Yeah.
Because I do not want to play piano ever.
Right. Yeah. So, but yeah, they're fun. They really do enjoy it. They enjoy music. So, but they enjoy it because they enjoy it.
Right.
Not because I told them that they should. So
talk to me about the new record. What, for people that haven't heard it, what can they expect off of it?
Well, there's a little something of there's a little bit of all of my influences kind of show up on there, and it's pretty straight up rock and roll, which you don't. I noticed this, and especially when I would show it to people, and they would hear it. And one of the comments I've got is like, "Man, it's good to hear some like actual rock and roll again." And I thought about that. I was like, "Man, that's kind of true." It's a lot of the rock now, modern rock that comes out. It's either kind of esoteric, emo style, indie rock. There's that, or there's the ultra aggressive, new rock, that kind of like, post metal stuff, post Nickelback, that kind of thing, just like 5 guitars overdubbed and like screaming and
overproduced bullshit, as I call it.
Produced bullshit, we could say that, and the lyrics are all they're just angsty.
Yeah.
Like just, tell me how you're feeling, just whatever, just.
Hey, that was pretty good, dude. You ought to do a screamo album for your name.
Yeah, right. And but this is definitely more in the kind of. It got compared to a couple of guys. Compared it to kind of like some of that Bad Company, a little bit.
Oh, nice.
Straight up old school rock and roll. It's about half instrumental, half vocal. And the instrumental tunes are kind of reminiscent in a way of maybe kind of the stuff that Eric Johnson or maybe Joe Satriani would write. And Andy Timmons is on it, on a track, for people who are familiar with him.
Yeah, I love Andy Timmons.
Oh yeah, he's freaking amazing. God, yeah, and so he was gracious enough to play a solo on one of the tunes, and yeah, I mean, I can listen to some of the solos, and I'm like, yeah, I can hear some Eric Johnson in there. I can hear some of the David Gilmour in there, but not overtly. It's not like I'm really trying to cop something.
Right.
But yeah, there's definitely some elements you can be like, yeah, I can tell where he's getting that. But overall, it's it's just a good straight ahead rock record, and there's a little bit of something for everybody, I think. And it kind of starts off a little bit more energetic. The first tune is the title track, Incandescent, and it's just kind of this guitar thing, kind of Eric Johnson again, just right out of the gate. And then it kind of tapers off towards the end. It starts off with a few rockers, and it starts to taper off, and then the last tune is kind of a lullaby type thing.
Sure.
So it has a nice progression. It's only 9 songs. It's only about 40 minutes long, which I did that by design because I don't like super long records. There's only a couple that I like The Wall. I can listen to that one start to finish, but most of our favorite records really have been about like 35, 40 minutes long when you think about it, because they had to fit on one LP. Most of those classic records, Dark Side of the Moon's like 37 minutes long. So you listen to it start to finish, and like it's just, you go on an entire trip, and it's only taking you a little bit over a half hour.
Right.
So that's kind of what I was going for with that. Just keep it kind of short where you can listen to it in one sitting, and it's hopefully it's all in the same kind of vein, but hopefully the tunes are different enough from each other that you gotta you don't feel like you've heard the same song twice. But it's all in that kind of classic rock thing. A lot of guitar all over it, a lot of layered guitar, and a couple of cool little recording tricks. A couple of sounds that I get in the studio that I can't get live. It'd be awesome if I did, but like where I played like one guitar slightly dirty and one guitar completely clean, but play the exact same part and pan them left and right. So you can't tell if it's dirty or clean, and it's just things like that. And it's fun to do in the studio.
Right.
And like I said, it's a couple of about half the record's vocal, which that surprised a lot of people. They were like, I didn't know you were going to sing on it. So so that's been another part of my musicianship that I've been really working on is the voice.
Well, everything I've heard of you singing, you sound like you have a pretty good voice to me.
Appreciate it. And because I didn't used to. I mean, I my voice is my voice, but I've really worked on like being able to control it.
Yeah. Well, I can't sing worth a shit, so anything is going to sound better than me.
But yeah, so I'm excited. It's a good sounding record. It's really mixed really well. We did it on a really old school board from the 80s.
Nice.
Yeah, I got it's like first generation digital. We were recording it's a studio up the street from me. Really nice studio. Great mics, great room. And the board it's like 56 channel early digital board, one of the first ones. And we're recording the DAT tape.
Nice.
Kind of old school. The digital readout, you can see the waveforms. It looked like an old like a bowling alley display up there. And you had to do the tape cuts, punch in like old school. It wasn't like pointing and clicking. He actually had his old console for the tape. And so that's it was fun, but it sounded really good. So it's a really punchy sounding record. The drums sound phenomenal. You just got massive drum sounds on it.
I'm looking forward to hearing it. I really am, because as soon as you said classic rock and roll, I'm like, dude, I'm sold. I'm downloading it.
Yeah.
The music scene, like music in the U.S. has completely gone to crap. I mean, you look at the Billboard Top 200, and literally 70% of it is like rap or hip hop.
Yeah, it's really disheartening. It's weird though. It's when you get one of these people that's used to that kind of music, and you actually drag them to a place, and they get to hear a real band really playing some real rock and roll. It's all over. You know, that's when you get it.
Yeah.
They're like, and they might not get it off of the CD, but when you're actually there live, watching it happen in front of your face, dude, yeah, they totally get it there. So it's yeah, but I agree. It's music scene's really shitty right now. Like popular music, not the music scene, because there's plenty of guys that play, you know, some good music,
right?
Where you go, but what's popular, you know, record companies are smart. You know, they know what people are going to buy. And they appeal to the lowest common denominator, and they make a lot of money doing it. So I can't really fault them for that. It's just really shameful that we've kind of devolved as a society to where that's the kind of music that we like. So.
Well, and it's a lot of people that used to play. I mean, I know some guys that are amazing at Guitar Hero, the video game that, like, if you spent that much time actually playing an actual guitar, you would be amazing at it.
Yeah, can you imagine? Right. Yeah. So
cool. Well, I don't have anything else for you, dude. Thanks for hanging out. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So yeah, just let me know what you think of the album, and I'm excited for y'all to hear it.
Yeah.
Seriously. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much to those of you watching. Again, I'm with Tim Goynes. He is a blues rock guitarist from Dallas, Fort Worth area. That's amazing. He is being humble, but I think I consider him a virtuoso musician. I will post a link to any place that you can find his music, whether it's his own personal stuff or with Tin Man Band, in the description below, so y'all can consume it. Thank you. And as always, have fun playing.